What's up, guys? Welcome back to yet another Prefect Live. I'm here today with Nate Nowack. Nate from our customer success team is going to show us some Orion Prefect 2.0 caching stuff. What's up, Nate?
Hey, thanks for having me on. Like Chris said, I'm part of the CS team. So I work with clients and help them use Prefect in the best way possible. So yeah, like today, what I was thinking about doing is some Orion stuff. Specifically, I wanted to check out a couple features, including caching. So what I have here is like a basic like ETL style situation where out in the world there are people playing chess on the internet.
Believe it or not, right?
In this scenario, we're talking about chess.com, which is among Prefect employees a great place to do that. We play chess like every week. And so the purpose of this ETL is to grab games from chess.com by username and then store them in a place. And in this case, that place is S3.
Cool. So first question, 2100 ranking. What's your ELO?
I am a lowly 900. I've been under the wing of Josh Furlan. He has taught me as many things about chess as he can manage. And I'm actually going to like make fun of Josh a little bit in the course of this demo. So
nice.
Yeah. So actually, yeah, like I said, this grabs games in the form of a PGN, which is I think it's, I can't remember what it stands for, something game notation, but it's just the format of the file that you could represent a chess game with. So it's basically going to grab those PGNs and a couple other useful pieces of information and put it in a pandas data frame, and then zip that pandas data frame up into Parquet and stick it in S3.
Got it. Looks like portable game notation, PGN is what that stands
for. Portable, okay. Yeah,
it looks like a really rudimentary JSON.
I don't know too much about it. I only was familiar since I became familiar with chess. But yeah, anyways, so the ballpark layout of this flow, which I called Orca, like orchestrator, but I also like whales. So so I'm going to say for username and some list of usernames, I want to basically archive a user's games from chess.com into S3. And so there's a interface, Pythonic interface to chess.com. Oops, what did I just do? There we go. Where I can get player game archives. And what this actually returns is just a URL that I can hit, get request, and actually get all those games. So then.
So wait, there's a chess.com library for Python? Is that correct?
Yeah. Yep. I think it's Python chess.com. Yeah. Yep.
Wow, so that's really neat.
Yep. So they have a method called get player game archives, and it'll shoot you back a URL that you can hit for all the PGNs from a given month. So that's what I'm doing here, grabbing those archives, and then I'm checking to see if these already exist in S3. And then for the ones that don't already exist in S3, I want to load them to S3. And I just have a little logic here to say if there's no games, like let me know. And the way that I'm actually writing to S3, I have an authenticated, or I will have an authenticated CLI session with AWS. And then I'm just writing to this S3 path. I'm using pandas to Parquet. So I guess let's give it a shot here. I'm going to go to my repo where this lives. And then I'm going to start my virtual environment, which I'm using Poetry here. Cool. So now I have Prefect available to me and the chess.com modules and stuff like that. So now I can just, because I set this up already, I can just go ahead and run my flow. Or I think I can. I might get an error. Oh, I do in fact get an error because I'm running Prefect Orion and I need to start Orion actually. So let's go back to the same directory so I can start Prefect Orion. I have to start my virtual environment again. So I have Prefect Orion, and then I'll do Prefect Orion start. So that'll give me the engine that I need. Go ahead. And then I'll go ahead and reset the database just to make sure I don't have any lingering old flows hanging around. So I'll do prefect Orion database reset. Should ask me if I really want to do this, and I do. So I did. And then I should be good to run my flow now. So I can run my flow. It should go grab those URLs I mentioned. Ooh, we have another error. And that's because I'm not authenticated with AWS, which is the place I want to store my games. So I got an access denied. And so let me assume the right AWS profile, which in this case is our Prefect sandbox. So now I should be authenticated with AWS. And then I should be able to run my flow. Oh, okay.
This is live. This is live in a nutshell, by the way.
Yeah. Cool. Oh. Okay, so we have a bad looking thing here that happened. Yeah, live coding for the win. Let me actually check something here. I'm going to kill this, and I'm going to delete this. Sorry about that, just a moment. And then I'm gonna restart Orion. Cool. And let's do prefect Orion database reset. Okay, let's try this again. Hopefully we're all set. There we go.
Easy.
Slight weirdness going on, but we're all good. Okay, so we can look back at these logs and see a couple things. We can see that it is checking for my games. That is my username, Nate.
Now you're gonna get a bunch of friend requests.
N80, N8. I hope so. So I found one new month of games for me, which suggests that I forgot to delete some of the games out of my bucket, but that's okay because I can do that. But another thing that I'm noticing here is that it's saying that there's no default storage has been set on the server, and storage is used for a couple different things, including persisting task results, aka caching. So we need to add some storage. So first of all, I'm going to delete stuff in my bucket here so that for the purpose of the demonstration, I don't have anything in the bucket. So we're starting fresh. So I'm going to permanently delete all my games out of this S3 bucket.
Anna's suggestion for your name was Nate the Great. So next chess.com name after this one gets banned.
In another life.
Cheating. In another life.
Yeah. So actually, since I started my Prefect Orion, I can actually open it up at localhost 4200. Shout out 42.
I love this. I love the fact that UI is included right in with Orion. That's so awesome. So
we were talking about storage, and we can use the same S3 bucket. I might get some suggestions on like paradigms for like which bucket I should use for different things, but for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm just going to use the same bucket as the storage attached to this flow. So I'm going to first of all check and see if I have any storage with prefect storage ls, and I should see that I don't, and in fact I do not have any storage. So what I can do using the docs as reference is configure myself some storage. You can use a bunch of different types of blob storage, including S3. So I'm going to use S3, and I can just say prefect storage create. Found the following storage. Usually it'll pop up with a message that lists these. For some reason, it is not at the moment, but I know that it's 4, the one that I want. Oh, okay, so strange. Prefect, I believe I have the command right. Let's check. Prefect storage create. Okay. So typically, like I said, it would show up with a list here. I'm not sure. Maybe I haven't integrated with yesterday's release. I think the 2.0 A13 release came out yesterday. So I guess let's check what my version is. Prefect version. Oh, I am. Okay. Let's try something momentarily. I'm not sure why this. Sorry about that. Prefect Orion start. And we're gonna do. I want to know about my storage, so I'm gonna do prefect storage ls. I should not have any. Sanity check. Prefect storage create. There we go. That's what I'm supposed to see. Not sure why I had to restart it, but that'll be a question for someone else after this. And now I want to select S3 storage. So I've selected S3 storage. Now I can give it some options. I want to tell it that I want to use my bucket that I was just talking about, which is Nate demo bucket, which is actually pretty lucky that this is available because bucket names are global. So this is the only Nate demo bucket that has ever existed. So I'm pretty happy about that. And because I authenticated my AWS or my CLI session, I don't need to provide an AWS access key ID or secret access key. And I can just let assume do that for me. I'm going to choose a name for the storage configuration. I'm going to call it test. So now it says you do not have a default storage configuration. Would you like to set this as your default storage? And again, for the purposes of this demonstration, yes. Cool. So I just created some storage where I can persist stuff, including task results. And I'm just going to sanity check myself and say prefect storage ls. And I see a very beautiful tabular representation of my configured storages.
Very nice.
With a nice little duck here to represent that this is the server default. Shout out Marvin. And now, if I were to run my flow, I should no longer see anything about not having storage. And I do not see anything about that. So that's good. And so besides just having a clean terminal, there's a lot of benefits to using storage here. And one of them is the caching. So Prefect Orion caching is pretty cool, in my opinion. I'm just gonna let this finish here momentarily. Beautiful flounder just finished. So the way I can do caching is I can take a task like get games, which takes in a URL and returns an iterable of games, where these games are it's just a custom Python class that I built on top of. There's a module called Python Chess, I believe. Python Chess, I believe. That's it. So there's a module called this, and it has a type called a PGN game, which I thought was pretty useful, except I wanted to get the information from chess.com and add it to this PGN game type. So I subclassed this and created my own version of the game type and added in the PGN string from chess.com that I got with the URL that I was talking about earlier. So now I have this game object that I'm returning from a URL that I'm building from this URL. So I hit the URL, grab a PGN, use the PGN to build the game, and then return the games. However, if I've already received that same URL, why would I do the work again? Because if I'm looking for Josh Furlan's games from December of 2021, that's what the URL is saying, because the URLs are by months. So if I've already gotten the URL for that month, then I don't need to go and get the games again because I've already done it, as long as I have storage to persist my task results. So the way I can do this is by specifying a cache key function, which is basically saying if this task receives this input again, it'll know that it's already produced that output. So what I want to use here is the basic caching function that Prefect provides. So the import for that is going to be from Prefect tasks import task input hash. That's what it is. So now I can provide that to the task decorator, and it'll now look at my URL when I give it to get games and look in the storage to see if I've already done this before and if I need to do it again. So you'll see that inside of here, I have this print statement, which is to get this URL, which you can see over in these logs that this action is being performed because I had no caching up until just now. So if I were to run this again, I should not see that get statement because it should not actually execute that task. Oh, so okay, so that's let me make a slight fix here. So it said no new months of games to load, but that's because I have this other thing which I haven't talked about yet, which is probably just confusing things. So I'm gonna get rid of that for a moment and then explain it. So let's run this again. So it's checking for games. It's printing the get, but that's because I think this is the first time that it's actually storing.
Yeah, you haven't
results.
cached anything yet, right?
So it's going through storing the games, and so this is the first time that it's that Get Games has encountered these URLs and then stored them. So then the next time that I run it, once this is complete, I should not see that get. There we go. So there's no print, which is my way of telling you that this code wasn't executed this time around because it saw that it got this URL before and it already has this task result persisted in that bucket. So it said, I don't need to do this work. I don't want to do extra work. Here's the result. So now everything downstream of that still happened because everything the downstream tasks needed, they were given by the results from the cache. So the other thing that caused it to say there's no new games was just a little helper function that I wrote while writing this, which is just to say, if this month of games already exists in S3, then I don't need to load it again, which is sort of like caching, but like on the other end. So it's literally all it's doing. It's just checking the contents of the bucket and seeing if the key exists. So that's what that's doing, just not to confuse anyone, but I'm just saying only get new games if they're not already stored. Cool. So just to show that, it should now avoid loading any games because it should see that they all exist. And in fact, that's the case. I can go and check this by going in my bucket. And here we see actually all the persisted task results with their own ID here. All these like random UUIDs are different persisted results. But what I care about right now is looking at my own stored games. So I click on my username, my games, and the year. So there I see all my stuff.
That's cool. Awesome. And now is a good time too. I think we have more viewers joining us. So far, where we've been, just to recap, what are we doing? What's the use case? It's kind of a fun one. And then what do we just do with caching? Why are we caching?
Cool. So first of all, what are we doing? We're grabbing games from chess.com. We're grabbing specifically PGNs, which is portable game notation, which represents a chess game. We are sticking that PGN onto this object, which includes other information about the game, like when it happened, who played, and stuff. So we're packing all that information into a pandas data frame where one game represents a row. And then we're basically taking that pandas data frame, zipping it into Parquet, and then dropping it in S3. And that's the whole thing. And the idea is that I don't really know what I want to do with these PGNs or these games yet. So I stick them in a semi-structured format in blob storage. And then maybe later, when I have a better idea of what I want to do with them, I could put them in Snowflake or something where I could like use DBT or flesh out some useful fields that I want to know about these games.
Awesome.
But for the moment, I don't know what I want to do with them too much besides just learn from my mistakes, maybe. So I'm just going to stick them in S3 for now. So that's the gist. And as it relates to caching, I can say basically this is a request.get where I have a URL which corresponds to a whole month's worth of games, and I have a result which is an iterable object of games that I can turn into a pandas data frame. And I don't want to repeat my work and generate this iterable of games if I've already fetched them according to this URL. So that's the idea of caching. And this task input hash uses the input of this task to decide whether this work has already been done. So that's the gist as it relates to caching. Another thing that's cool, like moving on a little bit, is that cool about Orion specifically is that this sort of just very normal Pythonic syntax within my flow definition here was a little like difficult to flesh out in Prefect 1.0, or at least not super intuitive to do. If you're just a regular Python user, you come to Prefect and you want to write a flow, like this, writing this syntax would be super natural for you in Prefect 1.0, and it might have been a little bit harder to actually do in 1.0, but now it just works. It works very nicely. So I can use nested for loops with tasks, for example. And that's exactly what I'm doing here. I'm saying for username in some list of usernames, do all the work that I've been talking about. And so what you can do in addition to this is use a different executor, like a local Dask executor, so we can get some parallel, some faster execution of this flow. So I think the import for that's going to be prefect task runners import. Let me check. I might have to check the docs here.
I bet Kevin could tell us in chat.
I'm sure Kevin is faster than me going into Google and searching it.
Mm-hmm. We'll see if he's paying attention. Kevin says he doesn't know. I don't believe you.
So I have to look it up.
Yeah.
That's okay. Parallel execution. This is what I want. Cool. Okay, so now I want to use the Dash task runner, which I'm going to provide to my flow decorator, which goes on my Orca. So I'm going to give that. Oh yeah, I can also specify any string, which is going to represent the version of this flow if I were to deploy it. Mm-hmm. But for now, I don't really care about that. I'm just going to say task runner is equal to Dask task runner. And I think I give that, I do, parentheses. Cool. So now, if I go ahead and delete this stuff, because I want to see it execute again, and I don't want it to say I've already done this work, I'm going to go ahead and delete my stuff. Actually, let's just delete everything.
So with Orion, do you have to like start a Dask task runner?
No, it actually happens on its own. So if you don't have some long-lived Dask cluster that exists elsewhere, and you specify, I want to use a Dask task runner, you'll actually see what it says, but it basically just spins one up for you locally, really and then cool. dies when it's done. So it's super nice. So let's go ahead and see that in action. Let's do Python flow. So you'll see that it is spinning up creating a new Dask cluster with distributed deploy. Oh, compute failed. Interesting. Did I forget to do something? Dask task runner. Operation not found. Client cert. Ooh. Okay. I don't think that would be related to. Let me check. I kept the version that I just tested around just in case something like this were to happen. I actually just want my own things, and I want to go to repositories in my Orion one, and then I want to go to here to see if I forgot something. Did I give my task runner? Sorry about that. Let's task runner, Dask task runner. Yeah, see, that's exactly. Okay, I'll have to figure that out. Unfortunately, that is throwing an error. So that's probably due to some typo.
Is version required? I know you said you thought it wasn't.
I doubt it. But you know, I doubt a lot of things that are true. So I can't imagine that's related.
Right.
But you know, oh yeah, it's
almost.
Let me just see if I can figure this out real quick. An error occurred 404 when calling the head object operation. No, it's kind of grisly. So I'm gonna have to figure out what that is in a moment. But the idea, which I've just proofed out roughly 20 minutes ago, and unfortunately is not working now. It's going to run basically all these months in parallel using the Dask executor. It's gonna run load games in parallel. So it's going to say for a given username, in this case, just me, it's going to find all the months of games, generate that iterable of games that I talked about, and then it's going to asynchronously, or at least in parallel, it's going to load these games by writing to this S3 path. So that's the gist. Apologies for having this error.
No worries.
But there's one other thing.
Kevin has one comment. Says, "Isn't that access to the AWS bucket?"
Is it
the head object error?
It could be. It
says the 404. You may have different credentials.
I don't think so, because if I do, I see my buckets. But if anyone else has any other suggestions of what they think it could be, let me know. I think I should be authenticated because I'm definitely, yeah, okay. I'll figure that one out.
Yeah, but I think the Dask cluster itself, does that have to be authenticated in some way?
I didn't. I was doing this exact thing earlier. So I imagine I accidentally made a transcription error when adding the stuff back. So I would need to figure that out.
Yeah, no
okay, but what other thing that we can do here is to give a deployment or define a deployment spec, which is sort of the lingo for a registration in Prefect Orion. So the import for that is going to be from Prefect deployments import deployment spec. So we want to get this flow out off of our local machine. In principle, we could give it like a Kubernetes flow runner and have this flow be picked up by cluster and executed on the cluster. Right now, I don't have direct access to one that I would want to use. So I'm just gonna go ahead and just do this locally, but I can define a deployment spec, and I'm gonna do that right here. And there's a couple things I want to give it, which I'm actually cheating a little bit and looking at what I did before, but that's okay. So what I need to give my deployment spec, or basically like registration plan, but deployment spec is the language now. We want to give it the location of the flow locally, which is going to be flow.py relative to this project repo. I want to give it a name, which is something that I can configure. I'm going to call it pgnetl. I'm getting tons of Slack notifications. But such is life. Okay.
Tell them to say it in Twitch chat, gang.
Yeah, come ask your questions in Twitch chat. The flow name is the name of the flow that I want to register or to deploy, because you could register, or sorry, deploy nested flows, as in my Orca flow could call another flow, but there has to be some sort of parent flow that you would deploy, and that you would provide. Basically, there has to be a parent flow.
You got to start
so that
somewhere.
You can deploy it.
You got to start somewhere. Yeah.
For the deployment process.
Yeah.
Cool. So I'm specifying which flow. In this case, it's just my only one. The flow name of that one. So flow name, and then I want to give it some parameters, which I can do in a very similar way to Prefect 1.0. Just pass a dictionary. And I'm actually going to copy this. So it's just my S3 bucket, which I'm giving to this function. So it's a prefect parameter for the flow. And then there's one more thing that I could add if I were so inclined, which apparently I am. And that is, I'm going to tag these with tags, which I could then use to control which work queues these flows appear in. And you could attach a work queue to some piece of runtime. So like you have a cluster, and you could run certain tagged flows on a certain cluster by saying they should go in this work queue and then attaching a work queue to that cluster, which maybe isn't, maybe I didn't say that perfectly, but I think that's a general idea. So funsies is another one I decided to add. But either way, the idea is that you can provide tags to this flow object so that it can be filtered in some way. Once it's deployed.
So you're talking about in the UI itself, right? Or both in the UI and in code. So you can interact with tags both ways, or is it just in the UI?
So it's not just in the UI, it's both in the UI and in terms of the idea of work queues, where you can have certain work show up in certain work queues according to tags.
Interesting.
So you could associate infrastructure with those work queues and then direct flow runs to certain infrastructure using these tags. So let's go ahead and create a deployment based on this deployment spec that should show up in our UI here. So we could do prefect deployment create. I'll type it out. Create flow.py. Just giving it my file name, and it should create a deployment for this flow, which is named right here. And then if I were to go to the UI and go into deployments, show all deployments, I see that I have a PGN ETL, and it has two tags, chest and funsies.
That's awesome.
So then if I had like a cluster attached to my Orion instance, I could go ahead and do a quick run. I can click on view parameters and see what stuff I'm actually passing into the flow. And I can just filter to my heart's content with all this stuff. So yeah, that's all good things. And I guess just for the sake of adding some meaning to what I do with this flow here, I'll go ahead and show you what I could do. So if I open up IPython, and what I want to do is just grab one of those PGNs that I've been storing in the S3 bucket. So actually what I should do first is I'm gonna grab Josh Berlin's games.
I was gonna say, how do we troll Josh? That's really the only reason I'm here today. So
Okay, so it's
sorry,
been
Josh.
building up to it.
Yeah.
So Josh's username is Glenn Bishop.
That makes a lot of sense.
So I'm gonna go ahead and run this flow now and grab all Josh's games. Uh-oh. See, okay, I'm gonna have to look into this one afterwards. This wasn't happening to me earlier. I suppose it doesn't exactly. That's bizarre. I'll have to look into that. I'm sure this is my fault. I've done something weird.
I just always default to I've been rate limited for my excuse.
Mark Zuckerberg's fault.
Yeah.
So it looks like my stuff is running. I'd have to figure out why I was getting that random error message. I think it's likely that the way I set up, I've been managing my own local Orion DB is slightly strange, and I might have screwed up doing that. Let me check what I actually got here. Should have Glenn Bishop games. Oh, I have all his games. So I just got some weird message. So I have all these games that just all got parquetted and zipped into this bucket. And what I actually want to grab here is this guy. So I'm going to grab this URI. I'm going to open up IPython. And I'm going to say import pandas SPD so I can read this parquet. I'll say data, and I already did this, so I have this autocomplete, and I want to, oh, wait a second. I tricked myself out. I actually want my own games. I lied. So let's fix that. I want to grab my own games real quick, which features a match against Josh Berlin. So let's go ahead and actually grab my own games. Sorry about that. So we are going to grab my own games. Should not take long. This is bizarre. Wait, have I not? That's unfortunate. Actually, let's do this. Sorry for the disorganized nature of the last couple minutes here. Let's do import pandas. I still want to grab this game where I beat Josh. Spoiler alert, that's what happened. Data. And actually, because of the way I did this should just work if I change the username. Glenn Bishop. Yeah, so data to CSV. I want to see this test CSV. Let's do index equals false. So now I should have a file called test CSV. And there was a game right here between Glenn Bishop and Nate.
There it is.
And if I can actually just grab this PGN, and I can go to chess.com/analysis and throw the PGN in here.
Ooh, here we go.
And I was black. I was playing black this game. And I'll go to the crucial position, which was right here. Josh was like, I don't like your bishop right here, so I'm going to come and threaten you with my pawn. And I was like, I don't care. I'm going to take your pawn because if you take me back, I fork you. And I forked his king and his queen, and it made me very happy to finally beat Josh, because Josh has beaten me dozens and dozens of times, and I've beaten him twice. So I forked him. I stole some other things, and I finally beat Josh
for
the first time.
You had another fork in there too with the rook.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right here.
Right there.
Yeah.
Or wait.
Back one.
Back.
Oop. I don't know. Maybe not. Yeah. No. Yeah. Back one more because the. Yeah. Right there.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're totally right. Cool.
Nice.
So that was me. That was my attempt at clowning Josh, but the reality of the situation is that he's beating me pretty much every time. So, oh well.
You can't admit that. Cool. I mean, this has been awesome. So I guess let's recap what we talked about. Let's maybe get a chess game in, and then we can call it. What do you think?
That sounds great.
All right, cool.
So I expect the handling for the couple errors that I encountered. The handling for that is largely due to my own Orion database setup. So apologies that wasn't more solid. But I'm excited to use things like the Dash Task Runner in the future, because just as I was using them like 35 minutes ago or so, it really speeds up your task execution, and it's super nice. But again, just to reiterate the purpose of this, in a lighthearted sense, the idea of this was to just grab some games from chess.com and store them in S3, because I don't really know what I want to do with them yet. But more generally speaking, the idea here, using Prefect Orion, is that I can avoid duplicating work by using things like caching. And I can very naturally, if I'm familiar with Python, write prefect flows, just using the same ideas that I would if I were writing a regular Python script. And then I end up with the extra visibility of the Orion UI, or the UI, and all the other things like just adding storage that you would need to manage yourself otherwise. Just all these other things that I get visibility into because I wrap this Python in Prefect, which is much easier now than it ever has been. So yeah, things like caching, storage, deployment specs, and then parallelization are going to be very useful improvements associated with Prefect Orion. So I'm super excited.
And just to highlight that, what you said and what you highlighted earlier, or you can just write a loop, for example. You can orchestrate any true Python code. I think that's makes it for more beginners like myself a lot easier to get started with something like Prefect. Let's you want to do a blitz game?
Sure, let's do it.
You want to do like a 2 minute yeah, or you can invite. Hold on, let me refresh, and then you can invite.
Here, I'll invite you right now.
All right, cool.
2 minute with 1 second increments.
Yeah, let's do it. All right, this is gonna be good.
All right, you got Wyatt.
All right, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, let's do this thing. Let's see if I remember.
Ooh. That's a free pawn. You see that free pawn right here?
Oh, I do, yeah. Oops.
And I'm definitely not trying to trick you at all.
Uh-huh.
Ooh. Oh boy, this is stressful. I don't know what this is. Dustin would have a better idea, but I don't even know what this is. Is this some kind of king? I have no idea what this opening is what I'm trying to say.
I don't really I don't have I don't remember any openings whatsoever.
Don't really want to do that. Ooh. I have a newfound respect for chess streamers. Unlike myself, unlike myself, where they can just like play well and just talk. Ooh, I don't like that. I guess I'm just gonna be a little annoying. move just little as I need to. Run away. I feel like I'm gonna be too passive. Shoot. Was that the first piece?
It was.
That's wow. Uh-oh. Ooh, is that a good check?
This is actually hard.
Yeah, the shorter time control is definitely weird. Uh-oh. Oh. Oh, I'm pinned. Oh, on time.
Ooh, nice work. That was fun. All right, cool. All right, we're gonna call it. Thank you guys for watching a little chess stream. I was really into that one for a second. Yeah. Again, Nate. Thank you for coming on. This is really great. I love learning about caching. Love seeing you work with Orion, and hopefully we'll have you on again soon. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
See you guys.